Hello everybody, this is AJ, you're with the Mighty Glue Stick, and this is a bonus video, a monsterology video, and it's covering siege monsters. So first of all, what is a siege? A siege is a military blockade of a city or fortress with the intent of conquering by attrition or assault. This derives from sedere, or Latin for to sit, which implies that the siege warfare is a form of constant, low-intensity conflict characterized by one party holding a strong, static defensive position, and consequently the opportunity for negotiation between the combatants is not uncommon, as the proximity and fluctuating advancement can encourage diplomacy. So basically you wear them down, and so it's as much a part of wearing them down psychologically as it is wearing down their defences. It really depends on the circumstances, and for the purposes of today's video, I'm going to be talking about what monsters are effective for siege, what sort of monsters that could be employed or actually use techniques of siege warfare, or if you took it if you sort of stepped outside the definition of what a siege is, what sort of monsters can take over fortified defences and basically devastate them pretty quickly or very effectively. And so I've assembled a who's who of monsters, and I'll just briefly discuss each one to give you some idea and some inspiration for how you could use them in your game. So first of all, we'll look at the city destroyers. So these are the kaiju type monsters, the really big, nasty guys that can actually devastate an entire city. So in effect, you might not use them for a siege effect because they actually destroy more than they just break through the defences and open it up for a negotiation. Really just the threat of these things being around is enough to cause somebody to flee the city rather than stand there and try and defend it. So first and foremost of this is the terrorized. It is a city destroyer. So the terrorized is a massive, nigh invulnerable, monolithic beast of legendary proportions that is famous throughout the D&D world. The terrorized, I haven't done a monster video on the terrorized yet, but it's an actual creature from French myth and legend that kind of looks more like a giant turtle than what the terrorized in D&D looks like. So yeah, it's a gigantic mythological beast in D&D. So then we've got demons. Now, demons exist to destroy the natural order. They exist to unmake the universe. So once you unleash demons on a target, they engage in total destruction. And there's a wide array of demons that essentially unleash as a horde, and they destroy every single thing that they come across, down to smashing the bricks apart underfoot, and most certainly inflicting great horror and destruction and terror on everybody inside that city. And they'll do so by first engaging great big assault demons, such as Glabrizu and other big, those big hulking ones, Garistos and things, and they'll essentially send wave after wave, smashing through the strongest defences first, and then sending in ever smaller and more swarming assaults of demons until there's basically nothing left. Eldritch horrors, Cthulhu type eldritch horrors, again, utter destruction. So they're interested in essentially their own motives, and anything that gets in the way is just lesser creatures that they destroy willy-nilly. And cities are an affront to them because the entire planet is theirs and we have no place on it. We're basically just the mould that formed on the bread to be picked off so the bread can be used for its original purpose. Things like golems, elementals. Elementals can range in size to world-destroying in scope, and so yeah, it really depends on how you want to unleash the elementals. If it's something like an artifact that somebody has unleashed elementals with, it could be an artifact from the Dawn War where the Primordials have actually pulled major elemental lords, basically gods from another dimension, and unleashing them on a city will absolutely destroy it. Elementals have a habit of ignoring human life. They don't understand human life and why we can't transfer our life force through the inanimate matter that we exist in, why we're so bound to it. So they kill things with impunity because they don't understand that they're killing things. To them, it's just matter. So, like for a rock elemental, rock is just a liquid medium that it travels through, like we travel through the air. etc. And fire elementals just burn things because that's what they're there for. Golems can range in size from tiny swarms, almost like that attack like a virus, to great big gigantic things like hulking mountain or walking castles in and of themselves, great big siege engine titans. It really depends on the scope of them in your game, so golems can be quite a variable in that regard, and they can have lots of different uses. Warforged, after all, are in fact living golems, and they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes as well, so you can certainly use them. Undead, particularly those that replicate, such as the wraiths, Bodak, and vampires and things like that. Once unleashed, it's very hard to keep them in check, and they're not interested in negotiation. They're there to destroy life. Same thing with zombie hordes and skeletons and things like that. They'll destroy any living thing, so they'll cut apart the potatoes in your garden out of spite. Gibbering mouthers. And all sorts of other aberrations. You've got to be very careful how you use them. The gibbering mouther, it dissolves rock. So you may be tempted to unleash one on a castle's defensive wall because it will actually liquefy it as it moves up the wall and spits bits of itself. And acid flies off in all directions, and then it causes chaos as it causes madness and terror in the city defenders and the populace. And then it's spitting exploding balls of fire that set everything alight, but the trick is you need some means of controlling this thing once you've unleashed it. So some sort of neutralization artifact would be very handy, in which case throwing gibbering mouthers into a city would quickly destroy it, or at least cause the population of the city to open their doors and surrender. Dinosaurs are not that useful, actually. However, I have imagined that you could use a Brachiosaurus, so the great big lumbering, long-bodied ones, and use their tail as basically a trained Brachiosaurus could use its tail like a catapult. So you attach something to the end of that long whip-like tail, and then it essentially just sweeps its tail and flings the object into the city. So it's essentially a catapult or a trebuchet that can go and go and go for days. And then you simply need to hook on the object to its tail and it will just fling them at a great rate of speed. They're not so much use unless you could get great big ropes and things and throw hooks or grappling hooks or chains or something like that over the city walls. And then you could use the massive pulling power of a Brachiosaurus to pull down the city walls. But the same sort of effect could be achieved with infantry forces outside of arrow range. Talking of ranged attacks, things like spellcasters are incredibly variable and range in potential power from a mere nuisance or basically a light-ranged weapon to a being of incredible power who can lift a mountain and drop it on a city. In the Forgotten Realms, once upon a time, spells could go beyond 9th level before they had a cap put on them by the gods. And they actually sheared the top off mountains, flipped them over and built cities on top of them and floated them around in the sky. And opened portals to other realms of existence, and mages were creating demi-realms of their own. So it was an incredibly potent time, and in fact, magic has never been as powerful as that. But it doesn't mean that it couldn't go back that way if somebody figures out a way to circumvent the weave, or if you're in a setting where there are no limits like that on magical power. There is no weave or web. So spellcasters can be potentially devastating. Spellcasters also include druids. Druids can undermine city walls and defences by using roots and trees and things like that, or sending in plagues of insects, swarms, or just causing the animals inside the city itself to turn against other people. So that's also quite effective. If every single cat or dog turned into a ravening beast, it would quickly unnerve the populace. Yes, certainly. And of course, divine spellcasters. There's no real limit to what they can do because they're channeling the power of their gods. And if the gods are against you, well, it's going to be a bad time for everybody. Spellcasting undead, such as a lich, can infiltrate into the city by basically posing as a corpse. They could come in a casket and appear to anyone inspecting them to be dead. They are, in fact, a corpse. But when they come into the holy site, where they've been masquerading as some member of a noble family, and of course they've got a lot of coin to throw around, which would grease a lot of wheels to get them into where they need to go. As soon as they're inside the city, well, then they can just unleash their magical repertoire to subvert, sow chaos, directly assault by raising the bodies that they've caused into a semblance of life through an undead horde, and they could quickly infiltrate and overcome a city. But of course at great risk to themselves, and they would need a reason to do it. So yeah, might be able to convince a lich that there's some magical treatise or something like that inside the wizards guild of a city, and it would go in there and do it itself. Honestly, it wouldn't really need you. But of course, there's no way to control the lich afterwards. I mean, if it decides to set up shop in that city, good luck. Shapeshifters, similarly, infiltration is a big part of, or the sapping of, and causing chaos inside the people. Sieges are as much as about eroding the morale of the people inside the city as well. Shapeshifters can, of course, do that extremely well. Either shapeshifters such as demonic type things, or doppelgangers. As a playable race. So though infiltration, of course, second nature to them, murder, second nature to them, sowing chaos, just a natural outlook of what they do, particularly if they're doing it without a lot of self-regard. So if they do it as a mercenary, at great risk to themselves, they can cause all sorts of problems, and in fact cause the city to just surrender outright by killing the leader, masquerading as them, and then saying, we surrender. And everyone has to do what they say. What else we got here? We got oozes. Fling a few rot grub packages or swarms of vermin, diseased objects thrown into the city is an old tactic. Rotten carcasses flung over the city walls certainly saps the population of the will to resist. And rot grubs are particularly horrible. If you go back and watch my video on that, you'll understand what having rot grubs rained on your population would be like. It would be absolutely terrible. Because they will quickly kill everybody unless a lot of magical healing is available. Oozes in particular can be sent underground. If somebody's got some sort of a rod or device that controls oozes, they can infiltrate under the city sewer system and swarm the city streets with oozes as soon as the sun goes down or magical darkness is caused. And extended magical darkness could also see the unleashing of trained myconids or other type of darkness-loving fungus fiends. Causing chaos is something that Slard do particularly well, and they, if there's demons around, there's Slards probably soon to follow. They tend to exist around the periphery of any sort of conflict because they are natural outlooks of aspects of the plane of chaos, and their appearance in any conflict zone will quickly cause massive fear as their horrific assault. Basically, they grab people and they use them as breeding stock and slaughter and kill anyone who's not useful. Particularly magic users need fear Slard quite a lot. Trolls are brutal assault specialists, and they're actually also very good at infiltration thanks to their ability to regenerate from almost any body part. You can lop a bit off a troll and throw it over the city wall, and unless it's recognised and dealt with, it can grow back into a full-size troll. And then it will be ravenously hungry and looking to kill and eat everyone. Trolls can also grow to enormous size, and their metabolism allows them to be altered alchemically or magically to take on a lot of very taxing physical boosts, which grow their size and rage to titanic proportions. So trolls can actually be a giant-sized threat. Lycanthropes, also, particularly were-rats and were-wolves. Were-wolves tend to spread their plague inconsiderately and indiscriminately throughout the population. Were-rats are usually a little bit more discerning about how they spread it, but if they've been motivated sufficiently, they can quickly infiltrate a city through its sewer systems, disguise themselves as ordinary citizens, and then spread the plague of lycanthropy throughout a large amount of people before it's even noticed what has happened. And then, of course, sapping the will of the populace to resist is easy once half of them have been turned into monsters. Rust monsters. Pretty simple, really. Rust monsters destroy metal. So you can use them to erode gates and the ropes, the chains and things that hold portcullises up. If a method of hurling a padded package that will basically burst open and unleash a lot of rust monsters into the city, it can cause a lot of chaos. And that will probably be more of a nuisance than anything. But destroying the city's arms and armor is certainly a very effective means of sapping their will to resist. Zorns, other dimensional beings from the plane of Earth, are excellent tanks and wall breakers. In fact, they can just basically walk straight through the city's defences in most regards. Particularly if it's a packed earth defence. Worked stone and things is not so easy for them. But they're extremely tough and hardy and can take a whale of punishment. So a Zorn that's particularly motivated, usually cajoled or starved to the point where it has no choice, can be quite an effective siege monster in the way that they can just go through castle defences. If you can find a way of throwing cockatrices or basilisks into a city, the mass petrification that could result would be very effective and terrifying. Similarly, hydras, if you manage to get a hydra into the city, or the hydra would be able to stretch up and attack the city gates and crenellations, being able to attack on multiple fronts and take a lot of punishment. If anybody's watched the movie Willow, you'll understand that hydras can be quite effective assault beasts. Any sort of winged creature like giant eagles or rocks are very good at bombardment and assault, and anyone who's up on the ramparts would be very wise to watch out for giant eagles that would swoop past and simply take their head off. Dragons, of course, are consummate siege beasts, with their ability to project dragon fear into the populace, which would basically cause the defenders to flee. The massive amounts of fire or other types of damage and destruction that they can unleash with their various breath weapons. The titanic strength they have, which allows them to just rip through packed walls and crenellations and rip doors off their hinges, and great at damaging everything. And their ability to fly by and bombard the place with giant boulders and things. I mean, they've learned a lot from their fighting against dragons for many millennia. Against giants. Giants, of course. Giants. Well, giants are also particularly good at it. I mean, anything that can pick up a battering ram and use it as a club is essentially a siege weapon. Having a squad of giants coming at your city walls would be particularly terrifying, because they can look over the city walls in some regards. Anybody who's seen Attack on Titan would know how effective giants can be assaulting a city's population. Not only that, but giants are just intimidating as hell. The megafauna. So the Paraceratherium was the largest mammal that has ever existed in the world. This kind of looks like a cross between a rhino and a giraffe. And it was absolutely massive. It was like 4 times bigger than an elephant, an African elephant. So you can imagine the mass that this thing could throw against the city wall if you charge it at it by basically driving it into a frenzy until it smashes into the walls and things. Which would probably not be very well for the Paraceratheriums, but they existed for 14 million years, which is quite a long time. Most species only live about 2 million or 5 million years before they turn into something else. But they were relatively stable for a very long period of time. And they were very adept at survival and quite strong. The Andrew Sarchus was the largest carnivorous land mammal that ever existed. Basically, it looked like a huge cross between a hyena and a wolf. It was really quite massive and almost comical in its aggressive appearance. It had a huge head and massive jaw and was very densely muscled, and could basically wrestle down and kill anything that it came across. It was a brute. So some sort of orc-bred creature or creature from the far north of your world like that could certainly be an intimidating thing, but not that great for castle assault, unless you manage to get them through the castle gates, in which case they can make quick work of city defenders until massed amounts of spears are thrust into them and they die. Similar sort of thing for dire animals such as dire bears, boars, elephants. They're good when they get into the city, but they're not so great as siege creatures outside of the city walls. And that's about all that I've got sort of just on the tip of my mind. I don't want to make this too long a video, but I hope that gives you some inspiration. Don't forget, magical items and things like that can unleash ghosts and ghouls, and you can have bags of holding or Big B's magical, Mordenkainen's magical huts and things like that you can pack full of monsters and unleash them on places. So anywhere where there's magic, there's all sorts of opportunities to bypass traditional siege methods. And let's not forget, magic is also a part of the castles and things themselves, and they're usually packed with people who need that stability and safety to safeguard the knowledge of manipulating reality. So most castles would have a resident population of wizards and spellcasters who do nothing but come up with means of defending the place. I mean, look at Game of Thrones and the Green Flame, the Dragon Fire, and that sort of thing. Or great big parabolic mirrors that could burn the troops. I mean, that may actually work in your Dungeons and Dragons setting. Simple things. Yeah, that sort of thing. And, of course, there's all sorts of other stuff they can do, like open up portals and things. Unleash, a beholder. Boy, what a great siege beast that is. Imagine if a beholder dreams of a siege beast beholder that essentially is 5 times its normal size, armor-plated, and blasts out telekinetic beams that can rip through castle walls and then immolate, paralyze, kill, terrify, and otherwise suppress the population. That's quite possible too. So, yeah, all sorts of possibilities, really. That's it for a monsterology of siege beasts. If you like this, give me a thumbs up. I welcome your comments down below, as always. And thank you for your subscriptions, everybody, and keep them coming.